What's up, Noel Nation? It's the guys from Plant the Spear. I'm Jesse. That's Michael. And we're excited to bring you a fully loaded episode. Michael, we got Florida State Clemson to preview in the man, what happened bowl, because this went from this is what's crazy is these were the past two ACC champions.
Yep.
And now we're fighting for bowl eligibility in this one. It is crazy. So we
Yeah.
got that game to talk about. We're going to take a quick look back at the Wake Forest game. What the heck was that, Michael? Where did that come from? It was like they woke up from a month of hibernation in October and all of a sudden remembered how to play football. We did not get a chance to talk to you guys about that game, so we're going to talk about that one as well. We got some rankings to talk about. Obviously, we're not involved in those rankings, but there is some subliminal messaging in there that is relevant to Florida State. We also have some recruiting updates and all kinds of stuff to cover. So this is a fully loaded episode. So lock in with us, guys, and we're going to jump right into it. But before we do that, Michael, how are you, my friend? And thanks for joining me for another episode.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for having me, man. We predicted on the preview episode for a loss. I predicted for a blowout. You predicted for a close game. No one saw the opposite with Wake Forest. And now we got nobody. And now we got Clemson coming up. And man, there's a lot to talk about today. Ready to get into the show.
Yeah, and someone commented like these takes age terribly, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure every take did. Every take, just like our season, they aged terribly. But now, hey, we might be back on track. So we're going to talk about all that, whether Mike Norvell's fighting off death or not, from a coaching position and standpoint and stuff like that. We're going to talk about all that stuff as we get through this. But let's first jump in with a couple of quick updates here that we do have from around the program. The next home game, Virginia Tech, has been announced that it will be a 7:30 kick. One last game under the lights in Doak Campbell Stadium. Hopefully they can keep playing like they did against Wake Forest and get another win at home. I'm actually excited about that because I'm going to be going down there for that Virginia Tech game. And something about a night game, man. I always love night games. So that is an announcement that is broke. Most of you guys probably already know that, but just excited for it to be another night game. Also, Michael, we delivered a spanking on Saturday, but there was also the Spanx lady in the stadium for that butt spanking. And so that was nice too. I know this has been making its rounds on social media. It's kind of been a tongue-in-cheek type of joke, but it seems like they have finally found a way to get our probably richest booster in the FSU alumni base,
Lord Jesus,
into a game and had a great time while she was there. Most of you probably seen the Instagram post, the Spanx lady, Sarah Blakely. So that's cool to have her back around. Unfortunately, I think she had a really good time with Mike Norvell and them. And so she may be buying into this coaching staff. So that may not work well, but hey, we'll take a donation wherever it comes from. But I know it's tongue in cheek, but man, again, anytime you can get a booster, like a potential booster like that in the stadium for a game, man, it's a big deal, right? If you can kind of hook, line, and sinker her into up and maybe some donations.
Well, here's the thing. This is one of the boosters we've been talking about forever. Like, why isn't she involved? She's a Florida State alum. There was speculation that some falling out had happened between her and Florida State. Don't really know what it was or when it was or why it happened. But I literally was watching and I saw it come up and I literally looked at my chair. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And she seemed like she was having a great time. Listen, whatever we can do to schmooze her and to make her feel the most valued booster of all so that she can pour some money into this program so we could, either buy somebody out and go get a better coach or get better players, I'm all for it.
Hey, if she pays Mike's buyout, she can coach next year. We can just do an interim situation. It is like you fund the buyout. You pay for some NIL players. We'll let you be the coach next year. Who cares, right? We'll have Spanx uniforms. Like it is what it is. Hey, if you're looking for an outlet to sponsor your Spanx lady, Miss Sarah, you could sponsor. I'll wear Spanx on the show. Now, y'all might have to turn the camera off for that because no one wants to see that. But hey, I'm just telling you.
We'll do what we got to do.
Negotiation. That's all I'm saying. So yeah, man, it's funny. It was a funny way to start the show, but yeah, it's something to watch, right? Because you see all these, Stanford gets the $50 million gift. You see all these big programs getting these big gifts from these big boosters. That's obviously something you want to have, in your hand there, if possible. Mm-hmm. Some of the next things to talk about here, the CFP rankings, the first rendition did come out on Tuesday night. And obviously Florida State is not in the conversation. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think the big takeaway from the CFP rankings, Michael, is that if you've ever felt like there was a time that you needed to, or maybe a sign that you needed to leave the ACC, this is it. Now, we already know what happened in 2023. Obviously, that was the we don't respect your
That was
conference
the biggest
and we're
one.
willing to
Yes.
screw you, right? That was the billboard on the side of the road, that they don't care about the ACC. But they followed it up with another one, man. And when you look at the rankings, you have two-loss SEC teams, a two-loss Notre Dame team, and a
Mm-hmm.
two-loss Big 12 team ranked above all of the one-loss ACC teams.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
basically what they're telling you now, there are some some of your better ACC teams like Virginia. They have a pretty weak out of conference schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They won a lot of games in overtime, so they haven't looked dominant. I will get that, but you're talking about a one-loss team who
Mm-hmm.
lost one game by, I think, 7 points on the road or something like
Mm-hmm.
that, and they're ranked behind two-loss SEC teams, a two-loss Notre Dame team. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so again, I think if you ever needed a sign that we still can't, so with the new agreements or whatever the case may be in the conference, you might be able to get more money, but that's
Mm-hmm.
still only a temporary thing. You still have to get out of this conference because by the time things shake out and we get to the playoffs, it wouldn't surprise me to see if there was a three-loss SEC team who's probably in competition with a one-loss or ACC team. And so, man,
Right.
they sent you another message as if, it's funny because as Florida State fans, we just sit back and go, well, y'all are new to this. Like
Yep.
we already knew this was the case.
Yeah.
But man, this was another chapter in the book of the ACC is a second-rate conference.
Yeah. Like for me, like, obviously Virginia is the highest rated ACC school and Louisville's right behind it in the college football playoff top 25. Virginia is 14th. Louisville's ranked 15th. Now in the AP poll, Virginia is ranked 12th and Louisville is ranked 14th, right? Miami dropped all the way down. My thing is this is what bothers me about this poll is you have a Texas team that you're saying, oh, quality loss matter. Okay. So
Yep.
they lost to Ohio State by like one score. Okay. I get that. That's a quality loss. Fine. Great. But the eye test, which is supposed to matter with the college football playoff, you telling me that this Texas school is better than Virginia? They look absolutely atrocious, right?
Mm-hmm.
They almost lost to Kentucky, which is not a
Yeah.
good team this year, right? They've not looked great. They've barely won their games by the skin of their teeth. Okay, you're telling me that a Texas Tech team whose best win is Utah? Utah. Okay. They lost to Arizona State out on the road. Their best win is Utah. You're telling me they're better than Virginia? You're telling me BYU? Like, I get BYU's undefeated, but in my mind, I don't see how you look at a Virginia school or a Louisville school that beat Miami and say that those programs are ranked should be ranked higher when you're looking at from the eye test and the schedule test. Again, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because when you look at the projected college football playoff bracket, Virginia is in. Now they're at the 11th spot there because they're projected to win the ACC championship. But so because this is the first year that they're no longer putting the champions in the top 4 bracket. It's just going to be
Mm-hmm.
by ranking. But the ACC automatically gets an automatic qualifier in no matter where they're ranked at. So Virginia is going to be in if they went out and they win the ACC championship. There is going to be an ACC school in the college football playoff, but you might have a scenario, Jesse, where you're looking at only one ACC school gets in
Yeah.
and 3 to 4. Well, we know at least 4 SEC schools are probably going to get in. We know at least 4 Big 10 schools are going to get in, and at least 1 to 2, potentially 3 Big 12 schools are going to get in. And then Memphis, even though there is no group of 5 that was ranked in the top 25, they're projecting that Memphis is going to be the best of the group if no group of 5 end up in the ranking, that Memphis will
Mm-hmm.
probably, if they went out, be the one that gets in. So, again, now here's what's interesting, and I'll throw this back to you on this. I did see a tweet this morning where they ran all the numbers of the original BCS, and it was almost identical. I think it was like a 95% match to what the committee put out. So again, I guess
Yeah.
even in the computers, the ACC sucks.
Yeah, I know, right? I think a lot of it's just preconceived stuff that's baked in, like bias that's been baked in, that's been
Yep.
created. And I'm not saying that the ACC is the best conference. I'm not for sure saying that. But I think the problem is when you're Florida State and you're sitting here like we're a one bid league, and the
Yeesh.
G5 is a one bid. I mean, there are 6
Yeesh.
leagues basically,
Yeah.
but like you're a one bid league too. Like you're
Yeah.
not doing much better than them. And so that's the hard part, man. That's the hard pill to swallow is kind of seeing what your conference is. And I mean, again, like Utah's another one. ranked above a 7-2 team, ranked above every one-loss ACC team. They got blown out by Texas Tech, right? And then they beat Arizona State, who's no longer ranked. So like they're and then they lose to BYU too. Like
how is that even
their
possible?
BYU win is no better than Louisville's win over Miami, and
No.
so or I mean they lost to BYU. Their Arizona State win is no better than Louisville beating Miami, and so I think again, man, it's just it's the larger picture, right? And I
Yeah.
will say that maybe some of it has to do with the brands that it
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
But that speaks to the conference as a whole. Like if that was
Yep.
Florida State and Clemson up there with one loss, would they be in that same situation?
Right.
Now we know they left Florida State out in 23, but that was a 4-team versus 12 team. So there's that whole
Right.
thing there. Yeah, it just again, I think it just shows you that there's not a lot of respect for this conference, and so I think long term you still want to find your way out to get into one of those that's catered to the way that they are, right?
Yep.
Because you need the conference as a whole to be better. You need the conference to earn more respect, and it looks like no matter what you do, you're just not going to get that. So, man, that's the reason we want to talk about the rankings just for a second. I know we're not in them, obviously, but it does kind of show you the long-term view on this conference, right? But you also can't have your past two conference champions from the ACC being 4-4 and 3-5,
That's
right?
right.
You can't,
That's
you
right.
just can't have that. Now, some recruiting news to get to before we jump into the Wake game. And then Clemson, we did lose a 3-star DB to Darius Hughes. He did flip his commitment to Syracuse. Man, I'm not going to cry over spilled milk of a 3-star DB when we have a lot there anyway. And I mean, the kid was literally holding cash in the recruiting picture on the flip graphic.
Yeah.
Like, if it just I'm pretty sure that was a recruiting violation not too long ago. And now it's like celebrated. So, I mean, it tells you probably why he flipped. It tells you, kind of the heart of that recruitment.
Yeah.
And so, you know what, man, I'm not going to worry about that. It is just one 3-star DB. Now, you did also gain 3 recruits over the last week. 3-star defensive lineman Franklin Whitley, 3-star defensive line, I think linebacker Dalen Green, Arkansas
Yep.
flip there, and then 3-star D lineman Chris Carbon. So I have not had a chance to really go through and scout these guys to know much about them. I do like one of them. I think the Whitley kid is like 6'6", 260, so he's got some size to him there.
Yeah.
I'll just say this from a surface level because, again, I have not had a chance to really go through and watch their film yet. There is a little bit of an argument where people have been going, look at the Desir twins, though. They're 3 stars and they're playing really well above their head. And I understand that, right? I'm on board with that. Like you can identify and develop underrated 3-star recruits that turn out to be great players.
Yeah, you
Obviously,
can.
Jared Verse was a 0-star recruit, right?
Yep.
But for every twins, you have a history of those 3 stars that didn't do anything.
Yep.
And so I think at the end of the day, yes, if these kids could turn out to be the 4- and 5-star type of players once they get developed.
Yeah.
You still got to recruit better than what you're doing, right? All 3 of these players are ranked out of the top 500 nationally. And so this just comes back to kind of that knock on Mike Norvell, where again, you're getting some recruits and maybe you can develop them, but you're still not recruiting at the level that you should be. And so, as
Right.
you like to say, I think 2 things can be true at the same time. I think you can identify underrated talent. I think you can develop that to play better than, maybe even some blue chips. I mean, we've seen 4 and 5 stars come to plenty of schools, not just our school, and wash out and be nothing. But you still, man, you can't be building your foundation out of 3 stars. You got to start landing some of those blue chips and then develop them, right? I think that's the problem is you've signed all these blue chips and you haven't developed them into much.
Right.
Some you have, but a lot you haven't. And so it's good to have these kids in the fold. Like you're still getting kids to commit to a very uncertain situation.
Yeah.
So that's good. And I'm not saying, when you look at the twins and stuff like that, the 3 stars can't be good, but man, it needs to be at a higher level. That's all I'm saying. You need to be landing kids that are inside the top 100, not outside the top 500.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those, it's like the chicken or the egg, like which comes first, right? When you're losing, is it harder to get those 5-star, 4-star plus kids to commit, or do you have to go and find diamonds in the rough? When I play college football 2026, right, I try to recruit some 3-stars, but I'm only recruiting the 3-stars that get that little green diamond that comes up, because that means they're actually going to develop like a 4-star, which means they're going to develop higher. And so in real recruiting, when you can't successfully secure a high number of 100 or higher rated players, then you have to go find those diamond in the rough. You have to go find those kids that you think, man, there's more here than meets the eye if we can just develop them in the right way. The issue has been, as you clearly stated, is that under Mike Norvell, man, development has been a problem. We've not
Yeah.
seen many of those kids develop. We saw a Hakeem Williams come here and basically, flail out. Now he's also flailing out at Colorado, so maybe
Yeah.
that wasn't on the coaches, but also we've seen a lot of different kids come here and just not develop. I mean, Julian Armello, who's starting for UCLA. Now, they're not great, but still, like that kid came with high promise. He was a high 4-star plus kid, did not get developed here. We can go on and on a list of kids that have come here
Yeah.
under Mike Norvell, that's not happened. So there's a risk reward in that, but the risk has seemed much more. The ROI has not been good. The return on investment has not been good under Mike Norvell in that sense.
Yeah, I think if you look at a history and you're like, man, we are a development machine, then you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't care who you sign, buddy. I don't
Right.
care if you sign a backup long
Right.
snapper and he's your starting quarterback and forth. I don't care as
Right.
long as you
Right.
develop them. But like you said, the track history has not been there for a high
Right.
level of development. Now that wasn't under this staff, so
Right.
we'll see how it goes. But it needs to be better. Again, the
Yep.
ones at the top aren't recruiting necessarily like that. But you're number 13 per 247 composite, number 2 in the ACC. So really, for the way things have went, to gain 3 and only lose 1 so far out of the class, I mean, that's at least a good sign.
Right.
And it is, again, you're getting kids that are committing to the program during tough times. So like you
Right.
said, maybe it's a little bit, you got to take what you can get. And we'll see, because we don't even know who's going to be the coach going forward.
That's
So
right. That's right.
we will see. Now it does make you wonder, like, what the message is. Like, no, I'm safe. Are you though? That's the question, I think. But one more thing before we start talking about Wake here, I do want to give a quick congrats to Luke Laux, who got his first win at Florida State as the head coach of the basketball program, 108-76 over Alcorn State. Again, look at the competition. It wasn't a whole lot, but you got your first win. Man, and they're a fun team to watch, right? And they had one kid, I think, set a school record for assists with 17. So, like, you got some pieces on this roster that are doing pretty good, man. I had his name in my mind and I forgot it, but again, you have to wait until you get into kind of the heart of the schedule, right, to see what they can really do. But man, anytime you can get some early season momentum under your belt, that's really good. And when you're a new coach who's trying to build something at a program that has not had a lot of basketball success, then like just getting that momentum and getting off to a good start is good, because hey, you got Florida coming up in a couple of
That's right.
days here
That's right.
on November 11th, and they're ranked number 3 right now. So hopefully you got Alabama State next. So you can get a couple of games under your belt, and then you're gonna have a big test against Florida, and we'll see how they do against that one. But this is a fun team to watch, man.
Yeah.
They shoot a lot of threes.
Yeah.
And they're fun to watch. So hopefully he gets things going. But man, it's always good to start your tenure off with a win.
Yeah. Well, and what I'll say to this is you have to think about the previous coaching staff. They it's Alcorn State, it's a SWAC. Like, that's not a bet. That's not a great basketball conference there. But under Leonard Hamilton, and hey, he did great things at Florida State. They were winning those games 72. I just went back and looked at the schedule, 72, 78, stuff like that. A couple times they got to the 90s, but very rarely under Leonard Hamilton were you getting there. So for the fact of the matter is, I watched a little bit of the highlights from that game yesterday, and they were just chucking up threes. I'm like, this is modern basketball. So now, again, we'll see how they do against Florida. Florida took a L against Arizona 2 days ago as well, too. So we'll see how they do against Florida. That's going to be the real litmus test to see how well this new offense of Luke Laux holds up. But, man, to be able to go out there to get those twos, I think, I forget what the player is. He got the high assists there, 15 assists in the game, which is like maybe a school high, might be. I might be quoting that wrong, but I think it was a school high. So, yeah, excited to see what they can do moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I know they did play Alabama real tight in that preseason game that was just a exhibition. But, again, man, and it was Robert McRae, 17 assists
17,
in that
that's
game.
what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, like, you're just looking for positives in year one of that team and that rebuild. So congrats to Coach Laux for that. Man, it's fun when FSU basketball is good, right? And it's fun when FSU baseball is good. And you know what? Those seasons are upon us, man. And if you're looking for some gear to support those teams, Alumni Hall is a great source to go to get it. They have basketball gear. They have baseball gear. You could support every sport when you go to Alumni Hall. That is including the football program because the season is not over. And so we're still supporting them as well. But make sure you check those guys out. If you're in Tallahassee, 1415 Timber Lane Road is the location, or you can shop online, alumnihall.com. Navigate over to the FSU page. They got a great selection of stuff. Make sure you save yourself some cash and use code SPEAR to save 10%. You can use that code online. You can use it in the store. I really appreciate you guys. I mean, you don't know how many of you come up to us when you see me out in public at home games like, hey, man, I just stopped by Alumni Hall. I picked up some stuff. You know, I got plenty of FSU stuff. I just picked it up and used code SPEAR to help you guys out. My guy Ronnie tells me every time I think that he stops by there. So, man, we really appreciate you guys supporting those that support us. And so we really appreciate that. Make sure you save 10% with code SPEAR. So, Michael, I feel like I was Men in Blacked on Saturday night. Like someone flashed my memory and it was like maybe just the month of October never happened because that was a different team than what we had seen the last 4 games. And I'm going to say this, man, love them, like them, hate them, want them gone, whatever you want. It was a good win for this team. It was a good win for Mike Norvell. It was, look, no matter how you feel about the coaching situation, and we're going to talk about that after the game, I always want Florida State to win. I mean,
Absolutely.
I do because daggone it sucks to lose, right? And not only did you come out and win, you smacked them, and that was really nice to see. Now, Wake clearly helped you a little bit, right? But this was the best Florida State has looked since week 1 against Alabama. And I know it's Wake. I understand that, and hear me out on that. But this is not a bad Wake team, right? They were 5-2 going into that game. They had just beat SMU, who beat Miami. Haha, Miami. We're going to talk about you later. Don't worry. They took Georgia Tech to overtime and should have won that game. It's not a bad Wake team, right? But it's still Wake Forest in the first year of a rebuild with a new coach and a new system and all that type of stuff. And there were still some things to clean up, right? We look at the box score and we go, man, this is 42-0 in the fourth quarter. Like we were blowing them out. It was still a 2-score game until late in the third. So we can't forget that as bad as Wake played. But again, for Florida State, the way they had looked over the last month, you could not have asked for a better game from them coming out and getting a dominating win and actually finishing and putting the game away. So that was really encouraging to see because again, man, if you play like that, you probably win 3 out of the last 4 games that you lost. It's just there's no consistency, which is the problem. But some of my main takeaways from this game is I think the first and most noticeable thing about this team when you just turn the TV on was the energy. Man, it just looks so much different. They were so flat against Stanford. It just looked like they didn't want to be there. I don't know like if it was the week off. I don't know what happened over the bye week. Maybe it was a week off to get away from each other, to heal up, to rest. Maybe it was moving into the football only facility. Maybe it's rallying around Mike Norvell. We'll talk about Tommy's comments and some of the players about that in just a second. Whatever it is, it worked. But the question is now, can you play like that through the remainder of the season? Because we've seen the highs from this team and we've seen the lows. We just haven't seen consistency. That is the one thing that has always been missing during Mike Norvell's tenure. But again, man, the energy looked really good. And Mike Norvell looked really different on the sideline. Like he didn't have his, bewildered look on the sideline. He actually looked like I watched right at the kickoff and he was walking around like fist bumping people. He had the kind of the angry look, like he was yelling at the refs and stuff like that. Like, where has that Mike Norvell been, man? This is what we have been missing for the last few weeks. Now, again, I'm not saying that we're going to give him a second life on his coaching career. By all means, we're going to talk about that in a second. But it just looked different. And it started from him, right? He looked different. The team looked different. And they came out and played. And finally, you played a complimentary and a clean game. And look what happened. You won in dominant fashion. So give me some just overall thoughts. And then we'll talk about this game a little bit. And then we'll move on to Clemson.
Yeah, I thought I recognized that there was definitely just, different energy about the team. You see, they were excited. When Earl Little got the interception there, Mike went and joined kind of in the celebration. They gave him the ball and they did a little dance there. And Tony White talked about that in this post-game press conference that Mike Norvell was the kind of the leader of changing the energy during the bye week. And listen, that happens when your back is up against the wall, when you feel when you feel like it's kind of like that prayer of serenity that people talk about. Lord, give me the wisdom to understand what I can control and what I can't control, and to understand the difference between the two of those, right? I think that's kind of what Mike Norvell did. He said, okay, look, I can't control whether or not I'm going to have my job right?
Yep.
I can't
Yeah.
control whether or not we're going to win the game, but what I can control is my attitude, the way I show up, the way I encourage these kids, how hard I am on them to coach them up, and all of those things. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm not going to focus on all the outside noise and all like that stuff. The mantra that we say, and I saw that show up on Saturday. I mean, again, you saw it. They were talking. They were communicating. I was watching the defense specifically, and you could see them pointing things out, trying to get in the right
Yeah.
stuff. And they still gave up a few little things there, but they almost had the shutout. If it wasn't for Brock, I don't know what he was doing on that play, but they almost had the shutout there, and so there was just a clear energy. And then you talk about what happened afterwards, where the players came out and were basically saying, like, why are y'all trying to fire our coach? We love him. He's the guy. We're going to fight for him. All those things. They showed that they didn't have quit. I know there were some people saying that they quit during Stanford. I was one of them that was saying that I didn't think they quit. I just think they just played a bad game. That can happen.
Yeah.
And for them to come back out on that game, I was grateful for the fight. It didn't change my opinion about what needs to happen at the end of the season. But again, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but hey, it gives you another data point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if there is a slim chance they're going to keep Mike Norvell, it was good to see, right? That after the things we heard after Stanford about the jokes about, what is it, responding and that he had lost the locker room and no one really cares what he has to say anymore and it's fallen on deaf ears, his messaging. It's good to see, right? I mean, it's good to see that they are responding and they are going to play hard. So I think that is good, whether they keep him or not. I mean, you still got 4 games left of the rest of the season.
Right.
So you want to see them do well because, again, we'll talk about what might move the needle or not in that direction. But it was good to see, right? Because you don't want to just flat out get embarrassed every single week. And I know there is that portion of the fan base. I've seen it in the comment section where they just hope that we lose because they want Mike Norvell gone. I don't think one win versus Wake Forest is going to move that needle enough for the administration.
Yeah.
But it is, I still want us to win games. Like, this is what we wanted to see the whole time. And maybe we wouldn't even be having this conversation if we saw this the whole time. But let's talk about just a few data points from the game, and then we'll get into that type of conversation. Now, first off, I want to say this game could have easily been 49-0.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
If you had left the starters in. So, I mean, it was close late, but it was still a shellacking. Like, you finished the game. First fumble recovery since 2023, I think you were telling me, like, hey, look out. We're doing some things here.
Yeah.
Then you only had 4 penalties and 1 turnover, and that was by the backup after the game was basically over. So you finally played a clean game. That fumble was probably about as much on Lucas Simmons as it was Brock, just given a lookout block, as I like to say. And again, I will address that a lot of people say, we won because of Wake's mistakes. And yeah, it helped, right? You had 11 penalties for 93 yards, and 2 of those penalties negated a 25-yard gain and a 53-yard gain, which is basically like you had 171 yards in penalties.
Right.
You also had a penalty that forced a punt on 4th and 1, and they also fumbled a bad snap in the red zone. So, like, they played terrible in that game. They definitely did not help themselves. But you don't win the game 42-7 without you doing some things to win too. And so it was good to see. When you talk about the offense here, 421 yards, 7.39 yards per play, 271 pass yards. All 3 of those are the most that was allowed by a solid Wake Forest defense this season. They're 34th in total defense, 41st in scoring defense, 12th in yards per play allowed, 32nd in pass defense. And you basically put up, higher numbers than they've given up all season on that solid defense. So that was good to see. You were only pressured 3 times on 21 dropbacks. You averaged 4.6 yards per carry, sack adjusted. So, man, I thought you did pretty good. Tommy, I thought, had a pretty darn good game. 271 passing yards. We joked before the game when he throws over 260. His record's like 2-7 or something like that. We'll add 1 to the win column.
That's right.
He threw for over 260 and they won a game. 16.9 yards per attempt, which is unreal. 75% completion percentage. Had a couple of runs too, 2 total touchdowns. Most passing yards and highest passer rating allowed by that Wake secondary this season, which again is a good pass defense. He threw and I don't know that this gets talked about enough, but that 66-yard dime to Danzy was chef's kiss of a throw.
Beautiful. Yeah.
And it's actually crazy, man. Florida State ranks number 1 in pass plays over 50 yards right now. So, like, the deep ball is just working. Deuce Robinson continues to be an absolute animal. I think your biggest disappointment with Deuce Robinson is you might only get him for 1 year.
Yep.
Like, if you could get him to come back, man, that would be huge. But right now, I think he's played his way into a first or second round draft pick. And
Oh
so
yeah,
you could definitely
definitely.
see him go. I mean, he had a ridiculous one-handed catch,
Oh my
5
gosh,
receptions,
on the back.
148 yards and a
Yeah.
touchdown. Man, I mean, ridiculous. He's at 34 receptions, 689 yards, 20.3 yards per catch, and 4 touchdowns so far this season. He's had 3 100-yard games. He's on pace to be a 1,000-yard receiver. So, man, he has been a huge hit for you. Thank goodness, because you haven't had a whole lot of other hits at the receiver position. Talking about you, Squirrel White.
Yeah.
He must be hibernating in the tree or something, and waiting for spring or something. I don't
Collecting
know.
nuts.
Right. And then, man, the other thing here was Sam Singleton had a breakout game. You know, a
Yeah.
guy who just has struggled to really get a whole lot of attempts, but we've seen him flash occasionally. 14 carries, 91 yards, 6.5 yards per carry, and a touchdown. He has the highest yards per carry of any running back on the roster, but only averages 3.6 attempts per game.
Yep.
That would be something that would be nice to figure out. So all in all, man, I know it you started a little bit slow on the point side of things, only having 14 points with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. But I thought the offense looked a lot better after putting up only 13 points against Stanford 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah.
pretty good night about on the offense. Give me some thoughts on that, and then we'll talk about the defense.
Yeah, I thought the offense looked, better, looked more cohesive. I didn't really love the play. We talked about this in pre-show. I didn't really love the play calling where it came to the quarterback run, only because I understand you're trying to keep the defense honest and show that run. But man, I mean, Tommy had 10 rushes for 9 yards total. Now that's sack adjusted, right? Because he got sacked. I forget how many times. But there was definitely, several tackles for losses for him. And, it was so frustrating because there'd be a wide 10 yards of open space for him to run. He'd get about 4 yards and then just try to run out of bounds. Like, bro, like go, like dives, slide. I don't know, something. Like, why do we keep that? There was a 4th down call we didn't get, or we tried to go for him 4th down. He got tackled. He tried to run it. It's like, man, come on. Like, I was frustrated by that. But I thought his throws, the deep throws were mostly on time there. Hey, one of the things I tweeted out very early on is every time they go to that hurry up under center, it's a toss play. It's a toss play. And it frustrates me to no end that if I, Michael, sitting on my couch, know it's a toss play, you darn sure know the defense knows it's a toss play. And the fact is that they fake the toss and the reverse, and he runs it in. I thought, well, dadgummit, okay, Gus, you changed shit up. We didn't see a reverse in this game, which was nice. Like, hey, so I love that. I also loved that we gave Sam Singleton an early hit. He started the game, and then we stuck with the hot hand.
For once.
Yeah. So I think on the day, Salchuk had 6 carries. Uzma had 4 carries. Jalen Lucas had 2. Again, I don't know why we're even paying that kid. Had 2 carries. So really, Singleton got the majority of the carries because he was hot. 6.5 yards a carry. The boy was busting runs. They couldn't stop him. He's running up the middle. He didn't fumble. Thank goodness.
That's
and
a big one.
I was really appreciative that the offensive line did a great job for the most part. You didn't have guys free running at Tommy. I think some of the sacks were on him holding the ball too long, things of that nature. But overall, I was very pleased with the offense.
Yeah, it definitely looked better. And you saw a couple of, because, I think one of the biggest complaints with Gus's offense was kind of like, we just do the same thing, like over and over.
Again.
And people are starting to know that it's coming, and you got to have some wrinkles off of that. It's almost like if you can't line up and just be better than them, it's just not going to work. Right. And some of the things that were getting so frustrating to me is in like Mike Norvell's post-game pressers and stuff, you always would hear, well, they threw some things at us that we didn't know, we weren't prepared for. Like, so unless you mail them the game plan, or they mail you their game plan every single week, we're going to just lose. So like, it's good to see them adjust a little bit. But
and let me say this real quick about Tommy. I appreciate the fact that he added another to the win column when he throws over 270 something yards, whatever it may be. I also think the reason part of that is because Gus handled the passing calls a lot better than he previously had. So you go back and look at Miami, you go back and look at Stanford, you go back and look at Pitt. He's thrown almost 30 passes those games. Why? Because maybe Gus felt like the run wasn't going. Because the run was working, he only had to throw 16 passes. When he throws for when he has less than 25 attempts, that's when he's at his most efficient in the passing game. It's when he has to go over those 25 attempts and then throw for over 200 something yards that we start seeing the inefficiencies.
Yeah, because we said this before on the show. If you're asking Tommy to throw 30, 35 times in a Gus Malzahn
Not
offense,
going to be
you're
good.
desperate.
Yep.
You're desperate because you're trying to win. You're come from behind or whatever it is, and it's not going to work. So I do think the offense looked a lot better, right? And the offense has been night. I know the Stanford game was terrible, right?
Yep.
But the offense has been really improved year over year, right?
Yeah.
And I
Oh
think you
yeah.
can say that. The defense, shout out to Tony White, man. I mean, that
Shout
let me
out.
let me first say that Wake offense is not good,
It's
right? We
putrid.
can agree on that. That offense is not very good. We had even said in the preview that it was good enough with a good defense.
Mm-hmm.
So they just weren't very good. But I think the first thing that stood out to me was what you mentioned earlier. Communication looked entirely better,
Yep.
like so much better. You saw guys pointing stuff out, communicating. I think they may have simplified things, which is something that Tony White talked about, that they needed to simplify things down a little bit so you have guys reacting and not thinking. So I thought the game plan and the communication looks so much better this week than it had been. I thought they finally are starting to dial up some pressure, which has been good, and that also caused one of the interceptions that you had. Defense had 13 pressures and 4 sacks. That was nice. You made a few big stops when you needed it. You dropped probably 3 interceptions. One of them that by Jerry Wilson, guaranteed almost would have been a pick 6. So, I mean, you were at least close on those things. You did force 2 turnovers. The snap was a luck play. You did actually force 2 with the great forced fumble that Edwin Joseph had that saved a first down. That was a big play in that game. You saw some guys hitting like Jerry Wilson. He did drop the pick, but man, I mean, that one where he read that like screenplay to the outside, that quick
Oh,
throw to the outside, and
yeah.
just like took the dude's soul, like that was, we haven't seen his
Yes.
defense hitting like
Come
that in a
on.
while. Like that's nice to make. Hey, Michael, did you know there is a guy on the roster named James Williams? Because we actually finally saw him make a couple of plays. Like it's only
Okay.
took 8 games into the season to make a play, but he had a couple of big plays, so that was good to see as well. And again, man, I mean, you basically had a shutout by the starters,
Yep.
right? Until you
Yep.
put in the backups and they kind of fumbled away, no pun intended. It would have been really nice because your last home shutout was in 2013.
Yep.
But it was also encouraging that after you had the fumble, you almost held them out of the end zone anyway. You got
That's
it. It
right.
got down to, I think it was 3rd or 4th down before they actually scored. So you had made a couple stops there. You did give up, as you mentioned, there are some things that you still did give up. You gave up 153 sack adjusted rush yards, 4.3 yards per carry. So you did get gashed a little bit there. But overall, man, I thought it was a good complimentary football game from both sides that night. And one of the last things that I want to touch on about the actual game itself is that Sperry, a lot of people are like, why do we play Brock and not Kevin Sperry?
Yep.
That was because you're trying to maintain his red shirt. He's
That's
already
right.
played in 3 games this season. He only has 1 left. And so let's just say Tommy, knock on wood, gets hurt and he's out for the season, or maybe he doesn't want to play in the bowl game or something like that. You can give Sperry that entire game. I think that's important. Now, with that being said, I don't love that decision. If he's possibly going to be the starter next year, I don't care about the red shirt. He's probably not going to stay here 5 years anyway. If he's going to be your starter next year and this staff believes they're going to be here with that schedule, he needs as many reps as possible. I think you have to think you got to think long term, but you have to understand where they're at right now. Like that could have been another quarter or half a quarter of reps for him. And then hopefully you can get some more, because you don't know how many chances you're going to get down the line unless you're either blowing someone out or getting blown out, that you're going to be able to get him actual live fire game reps. So I think they should have played him anyway. At the same time, that kind of tells me maybe they have other plans. Maybe they're going to look at bringing someone in from the portal. Maybe they know something. We don't think Tommy's going to be eligible for next year, but there is that question that nobody really seems to be able to answer, whether he can come back or not. Maybe it sounds more like they're going to go after a portal quarterback if they're trying to save that red shirt, right? Because otherwise, you should be trying to feed him through a fire hose and get him up to speed for next year, right? I think that would have been important. So, but I just did want to touch on that because a lot of people were like, why do we play Brock instead of Kevin? You're trying to maintain his red shirt.
Yeah, well, I think and the issue with Tommy, the ruling, the NCAA actually released a ruling. I want to say it was about a month ago that basically said that whole 5-for-4 whatever rule is, that they're not going to approve it. So that effectively ended Tommy's chance of being able to come back. He cannot come back. Okay, so now you're either going to go with what's his name? Sperry, sorry. You're either going to go with Sperry, or we're going to do, would this be the gosh, 4th year that we bring
Because
in
you're
a
not going
portal
with Brock.
quarterback. You're not going
Yeah,
with Brock. It's
you're not going
very
with Brock.
clear that Brock is a perpetual backup at this level. Okay,
Yeah,
it's just clear. At least at Florida State. Okay,
he has like the commitment of Sean McGuire and the skill set of JJ Constantino.
JJ Constantine. Oh my gosh, what a
So you
terrible
got like
bowl
Sean
game.
Constantino over here.
Sean Constantine or JJ McGuire. Like
Yeah,
so,
basically.
yeah. So you're gonna do that. Now, here's the thing though. The moment you go after a portal quarterback or you even indicate that, then Sperry's gone. Who's sticking around to be again passed over by? This has been the problem with Mike Norvell is that you get these guys in from the high school who are supposed to be potential developing things, and now you're saying, hey, because I got to win now, I can't play you.
Yeah.
You're not ready yet. And so then they get lost in development. Who knows? Brock could have been a playable quarterback had you not gone with DJ, right? But because you wanted to get revenge and show all that you got screwed, you went and got DJ. You overpaid for a guy who throws a touchdown or throws passes into the brick wall. And then you did it again this year where you went and got Tommy, who you knew what he was, and he's turned out to be exactly what you thought he would be, which isn't great, but also not worse than DJ. And now you might have to do it again because you're in this dire situation again. At some point, we just have to recognize this isn't working.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the only place I would disagree a little bit is with Tommy because you had basically lost all your quarterbacks other than Brock and you knew he wasn't serviceable. So you had to get bodies and you were switching systems. So I could understand bringing Tommy in. But I think now to your point, you've seen that the portaling over and over and over is not necessarily leading to success. And so at some point, I mean, Sperry's look good when you've played him. So why not get him as many reps as possible and have him ready to go by next year? Or again, like you said, you run the risk of running him off for another portal quarterback that you don't know if it's going to work or not. Eventually, you have to play these guys. I mean, Pitt is out here lighting the world on fire with a freshman quarterback. If this kid is a sophomore, by the time he gets to start, he should be at least serviceable. So again, it just comes back to the development part of things. So why can't you develop and field a quarterback out of high school? And so that's one of the biggest knocks. And so I think that's a good transition period to point to switch to what this means now, right? Now that Florida State had this win, because look, man, there are a lot of people who are like, all right, well, maybe we stick with Norvell. And I don't think one win should move the needle that far, right? I still think it's time for a change. But I will say this. We both feel it's still time for a change. We both feel, I can say this confidently, that Mike Norvell is not the guy long term, right? But I did say, I think it was last week, that if he wins out, and that is the caveat, and it looks good, like you couldn't go beat Wake by 3, beat Clemson by 3, lose to NC State or something like that, and expect to be like, oh yeah, looks great, right? But if it looked good and you win out, or at least get 3 of the last 4, fine. Maybe you want to give him another season. Maybe I can justify that, right? So far, so good, right? So far, so good. You beat them 42-7. That's what you need to see. If you go up here and beat Clemson by 20 or something like that, okay, Mike, I'm sorry I doubted you, right? What are we doing here?
Right.
But I still don't think he's going to be the long-term answer. And so, again, man, the reason I kind of look at that is it's still, when you look at these last 4 games, this is basically Mike Norvell trying to win his another year on his job. Right. And so you still just throttled Wake in a rebuild, right? And who realistically has one good win. And so over SMU. And so that one looks good, but it only moves the needle so far. Now you play 3-5 Clemson, 3-6 Virginia Tech, 5-4 NC State, and 3-5 Florida. That's why I say it has to look good, because you can't go out and barely beat a bunch of bad teams like this. I feel like this could be a little bit like 2022, where you go on a tear at the end of the season against a bunch of bad teams. Now, the fork in the road is, let's just say that happens. Say you do go and you win the last 4 games and, at least probably a bad Clemson team. Florida's still playing really hard, right? I was in Jacksonville. I was at that game. They're still playing hard. They almost beat Georgia. So I think they're going to give you a challenge for that. By the way,
Right.
sorry that we did not have a post game, right? I was in Jacksonville. It was crazy. I broke my phone screen. My car got hit. All kinds of stuff. It was crazy. And then I got home and someone did not call 411 before they dug and wiped out the internet for the entire county that I live in. So I tried on Monday, couldn't do that. But anyway, let's say they go on this 2022 type of tear. Well, what comes next year, right?
Right.
After 2022, we saw what happened. You went on a
Right.
13-0 run and won the conference and should have got into the playoffs. I also think you could end up in a Billy Napier situation where you gave the vote of confidence. You beat a couple of bad teams. Now, the LSU and the Ole Miss win were good, but every other team
Right.
they beat throughout the season was not good, us included.
Right.
And so maybe you give them that vote of confidence and you finish strong and then you bring them back, but then you still fire them the next year. So it's just hard to say, man. That's why I don't like building a house of cards by beating a bunch of bad teams because, yes, 2023 did happen and it could happen if you gain some momentum. The difference is, from 22 to 23, you returned a ton off of that team, a ton of really talented players. This year, you're at least going to lose your starting quarterback, your entire offensive line, probably your best receiver if Deuce goes pro. You're going to lose some of your best defensive linemen and Darrell Jackson and some of the other guys that you got on that side of the ball. So the difference is you're not in a position to bring back what you brought back in 2023 to build onto this. You're going to have to go portal heavy again, start over, hope it all works out. Now, you've got some nice young pieces on this team that you can build around going forward if you're here long enough to do that. Still, finishing strong does at least make you more attractive in the portal for next year if Mike Norvell is still here. But, again, we don't really expect that to be the move that they should make. But at the same time, there are a lot of jobs that are still coming open. We just saw Auburn being the latest one to come open. And so, yeah, man, I think, when you talk about the things that Tommy said as well, right, in defense of Norvell, and some of the other players said that too, that the losses are on the players. It's not on Mike Norvell. It's great to see that they're still playing for him. They did look lifeless against Stanford, the rumors and all that stuff. So it's good to see them come out and defend their coach, although I
Yep.
expect that anytime from a
Yeah.
player, right?
Yeah.
But I think you also have to ask, like, okay, so if it's on the players, was it on the players last year? Was it on the players in 2021? What was 2023 on the players and not Mike? So I do believe there is some truth to what he said, but this isn't the first bad season. And at the end of the day, that staff is still responsible for bringing in players and having them ready.
Yeah.
I like what Tommy said about it's a new November. That sounds great. And I hope they finish strong. A new November doesn't mean much when you lost every game in October. And
Right.
so, like, you have to perform over the entirety of the season because this is a business based on wins and losses.
Right.
But man, again, like at the end of the day, the goal when we came into the season was never to fire Mike Norvell. And really, all he had to do, man, this is the crazy thing about Mike Norvell's tenure here. Like, there's so many little moments that's changed things for him. All you had to do was beat Pitt at home with a freshman quarterback. All you had to do was follow that up with a win at Stanford. We'd be 6-2 right now, and nobody would be complaining at all. In 2021, you went 5-7. Had you not have lost to Jacksonville State, you'd have been 6-6, made a bowl. No one probably would have complained about that season. It's always been those little things here and there that are just kind of damning on his tenure. But again, man, the goal was to never fire him. But it needed to look like this for every game of the season. You couldn't have that 4-game slump where you just look terrible. I mean, let's be honest. Like right now, the Miami loss does look a little bit worse. They've lost 2 games since then. But UVA's 8-1 in ranked, Pitt 7-2 in ranked. So some of these losses don't look super terrible, right? 3 of your 4 losses were by 1 score and against currently CFP ranked teams. So I guess if that's the good side of what you're looking at for Mike Norvell, if they can come out and play the rest of this season that way, every game is winnable. Remember, Wake beat Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, and you just handled Wake.
Yep.
They lost to NC State by 10 at home. You beat them by 35. You know what I mean? So you should be kind of competitive with NC State. Clemson's fallen off a cliff. UF is obviously, they're still playing hard, but they got some more losses probably coming, so we'll see where they're at. If you're Mike Norvell, man, you just have to keep winning. You might not win them all, but you need to be at least competitive and win 3 of the last 4, I would think, to get to 7-5 and make a bowl if you want to have any hope of keeping your job. The problem with that for me, Michael, is you have to win at least 3 of the last 4, and 3 of the last 4 final games are all on the road.
Yeah.
We have lost 8 straight games away from Doak. The last road game not in Tallahassee that we've won was the ACC championship in 2023. That's a tall task. But, man, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm happy to get a win. I'm happy for Mike. I'm happy for this team. I'm glad they won because, man, I will wholeheartedly say, even if Mike Norvell wins out, I don't think he's the long-term answer. So I still think you need to be thinking what you need to do. It was still 406 days between ACC wins. That's unacceptable at Florida State. But what I say, Michael, right, is I don't care who the head coach at Florida State is. I don't care. As long as you win. I don't care if it's Mike Norvell for the next 10 years or Jimbo Fisher next year. As long as you win, I don't care whose name is on the door, right? I just want you to win games. And so if you can play like this every week, fine. You can stay. But I just still don't think it's the answer. And I'll kick it back to you on this. You were telling me about this. They did appear to have moves in place to fire him if he lost, right? A lot of the big wigs were out on the field and stuff. So I still think, as good as this win feels, if you go lose to a bad Clemson team by 20 points next week, we're all going to be back on the firing train. If you lose 3 of the last 4 games, we're all going to be back on the firing train. This is a scale right now, right? And you have 4 wins and 4 losses. 1 really good win, 1 really bad loss. And so you're kind of teeter-tottering in the middle right now. Now you get the little bit of bump on the good side for 23 because that did happen in 22. Right. But you've also had a lot of bad seasons that tips that back in the firing direction. So it's critical for Mike Norvell to win these last few games so you don't end up in that Napier situation. Because, man, at the end of the day, it's always best for him to succeed so FSU doesn't have to spend $70 million to change its coaching staff. But I'll throw it back to you on this, man. Again, they are a lot better than they were last year, but the 4 losses were rough. The Stanford loss was inexcusable. This loss was good, and it could set you up for a strong finish. I still don't think he's the long-term answer. And so I still think you don't need to let this blind you from the fact that a change still needs to be at least explored. Because what if Gus leaves, right? There are a lot of rumors that Gus might be retiring because he's got some family issues and things like that, and he doesn't want to be a head coach anymore. What if Auburn comes calling? Would he go back to Auburn? I don't think he wants to be a head coach, but Auburn could change things, right? What if Tony White fixes the defense and takes a head coaching job in the next year or so? We give a lot of the change to the coordinators of what's gotten better. You're still going to be stuck with Mike, a head coach, a CEO who can't consistently recruit at a high level, can't really win consistently, and drops questionable games on the regular. So I'm not saying that Mike is the worst option, but there are certainly better options out there. So it's up to him how he finishes the season to see if he can actually get to that end of the season decision. But, man, you got to be more consistent. And I still think it's not the move. I still think if you keep him, you're going to end up in a Napier type of situation next year when things go south and you end up having to fire him anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's always this tricky thing. Like, I agree. I do not think that Mike Norvell is the answer long-term for Florida State. It's already proven. We have enough data points. This is not like it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. This has been now 6 seasons of clear data points where the recruiting has not held up to the standard. That, yes, you did own the transfer portal, but when everybody else caught up, the transfer portal recruiting has not held up to the standard.
Mm-hmm.
The team has faded every season. Either they start cold and end somewhat hot. They start cold and stay cold. They start hot, they end cold. They start hot and they end lukewarm. Like it's just been that.
There's no consistency.
There's no consistency.
Yeah.
The development has not been there as well. You're constantly, in this paradigm where you're just not sure what team is going to walk on the field. So all that is very true. But at the end of the day, this decision is going to come down to the powers that be, the people who write the checks, Michael Alford, President McCollum, and Peter Collins, the Board of Trustees chairperson. And they were on the field. I saw the video. They were on the field. So they were very attuned to what was going to happen at that game. And my imagination is if Florida State had lost, close, maybe not. But if that was a bad look, Mike Norvell would not be the coach of Florida State today as we're.
Yeah, if it was 42-7 Wake, he's gone.
This would be over, right?
Yep.
I think this, as you talked about a scale, I'm using a percentage. I think after Stanford, it was 100% once Michael Alford released that statement. It was 98% that Mike Norvell was not going to be the coach come the end of the season, whenever it happened. I think this win and the way it looked took that percentage down to maybe 90%. Okay. Meaning, I still think that if FSU doesn't win any more games this season, Mike is gone. Okay.
100% agree.
100% agree. Now, if they go to Clemson and let's say they get blown out, well, that percentage goes right back to 100 or whatever you want to call it. If they lose close, let's say they lose on a field goal to Clemson, and we're going to talk about that whole game. Let's say they lose on a field goal. That doesn't feel good, but I could see, based on what we've seen so far, them saying, okay, that was close.
Yeah.
Like the percentage doesn't go up, but it doesn't go down either, right? And then you get the Virginia Tech game, and then you get the Florida game, and then you get whatever else is left. So again, every game is really a referendum on what Mike Norvell happens. Now, let's say Mike Norvell wins out. Let's say they win the next 4 games miraculously. Well, that percentage goes, if they win at Clemson, then I'd say it's probably down to 75%. He's not the coach.
Oh, yeah.
Then if they win, what's the Virginia Tech game? Then I'd say it's down probably to 50%. He's not the coach. If they beat Florida, you guaranteed he's coming back next season. Just go ahead and write it in the book. He's coming back next season. If they don't beat Florida and they end the season 7-5, I think with a bowl win, he's coming back next season.
I do too.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think at that point for us as fans, what we have to do is we then have to each decide, am I in or am I out? Am I in? Meaning, do I support this program no matter who's the coach is? I just want them to win. Or am I out because Mike is the coach and I'm not going to support this program until Mike is gone? That's what we all have to decide. For me, like you said, Jesse, it doesn't matter who the coach of this program is. Every year I'm showing up and I'm rooting for them to win. And I'll be angry. I'll be upset. I'm going to want the coach to be fired, but I'm still rooting for them to win. So to the people who are rooting for Wake Forest this weekend, shame on you because that was terrible. You should want your program to win. I'm going to keep harping on this. No matter how bad you don't like the coach, you should always be rooting for Florida State. I'm not trying to tell you how to fan, except in this case. And I'm just telling you, if they keep winning out, Mike Norvell will be the coach. Do I think he should be the coach next season? Absolutely not. But there's a chance. The chance got better with Wake Forest that he's the coach next season.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing to mention that we've talked about wholeheartedly throughout this whole process. Like, this is how we feel, but it's not about how we feel. It's about what they're actually going to do. And I promise you, if he wins out by 1 point, he's going to come back. If he wins out and smacks everybody on the rest of the schedule,
he's coming back.
He's for sure coming back. But again, it comes back to like, it doesn't matter to me who the coach is. Now, all the things that you talked about before are the reasons why I don't think he should be the coach, whether he wins out or not. The recruiting, the development, all of those things are the reasons I don't think he should be the coach, because he's not a long-term national championship program building coach, right? He is kind of a, let's see what we can build for this year and see what we can do with this year. It doesn't feel like he's building a program, right? And I think that's the hard part, because you're not doing enough.
He might be a good NFL coach, you know?
Maybe, right? Maybe he just needs a good GM. But so I do say that. Now, but again, like, I don't care if Mickey Mouse is the head coach, right? Now, it might feel like we've had Mickey Mouse as the head coach a few times over this last 6 years, but like, I don't care if he's the coach. As long as he wins games, it doesn't matter to me. And so, like, if Mike Norvell can come out and smash these last 4 teams, it is what it is, man. I'm still going to show up and support him. Like, that would at least make me feel better about stomaching him coming back next year, right? But you got to see it. You got to see it next year too, because I think he's going to be on the hot seat next year, because it's going to be even more affordable to fire him. So it's just something that we're saying that, like, we still don't think he's the long-term answer. But if they can win at this level consistently through the rest of the season, I'm not opposed to bringing him back, because he could finish 8-4 where we thought we wanted to see him finish. The Stanford loss was just almost inexcusable. But again, man, if you whoop up on these teams and go win a bowl and go 9-4 or something like that, fine, bring him back. I don't care. You're probably still going to fire him at some point anyway, but we'll see. So speaking of, let's talk about that next game, and that is the Clemson game. Now, before we jump into that, if you guys are enjoying this content, lock in with us. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. If you're watching on YouTube, we would greatly appreciate that. Help support the channel. It's completely free. Doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't sign you up for anything other than Florida State content, which you obviously like because you're an hour into a FSU podcast now. So make sure you do that. If you'd like to join the channel and take it one step further, you can support us for one small monthly gift. It's like $5 a month. Hit the join button and you'll become a part of the PTS tribe. We really, really appreciate those who have joined. Again, we don't put anything behind a paywall. We
Right.
basically just let you guys choose whether you want to help support what we're doing financially or not. So we would greatly appreciate that. And thank you to those who have joined the tribe. Everything we get goes back into the show to make it better for you guys. Neither one of us take a paycheck from this. We do tailgates and all that stuff. Speaking of the NC State game, we are going to be having a big tailgate. I just found out we're going to be partnering with our friends over at Unconquered Tailgate. We got our passes in. I just found out they're literally front row of the stadium parking lot. So I won't spit on their logo like they did ours. I can spit on the stadium from how close we are. So make sure you're following us on social media so you can stay tuned for more updates about that if you're going to be at that game in Raleigh. So again, we really appreciate you guys locking in with us. Rate and review on the podcast would also be nice. I was looking it up today, Michael, on Spotify. I think we have like less than 10 reviews. It would be nice, if you hit that 5-star, that would really help us reach. I know most of you guys listen on Apple Podcasts anyway. So with that out of the way, we appreciate you guys. It's a PTS family. We couldn't do the show without you guys. But let's talk about this Clemson game real quick here. Florida State 4-4, Clemson 3-5. It's like that meme we talk about, Mike, all the time, where it's like, who would have thought we'd have been here? I don't think anybody would have thought that we would be in the Butt Cheeks Bowl here in November between these two teams. I thought this would be like a ESPN primetime game, all this stuff. And here we are, 7 p.m. on the ACC network, battling for bowl eligibility. Look, we got to win 2 of the last 4. They have to win 3 of the last 4 just to make a bowl. And as I mentioned before, man, it is wild to think these are the past 2 ACC champions. We won in 23, they won in 24. And here we are, man. This just speaks to the parity of college football and how crazy it has gotten. Now, the spread is Clemson by 2.5-point favorite there. That is basically giving them home field advantage. The over-under is 56.5 points. That puts an implied score of around a 30-27 Clemson win.
Yeah.
They are 1-4 at home, which is probably the most wild stat of the season. Because remember, Clemson came into this season as a national title contender. I had them probably making the playoffs and playing for national title. I think that was one of my preseason hot takes. So that it's crazy to see how far they have fallen. But even more than that, we talked about this in other shows where I think Clemson had over the last 10 years up until last year, they had multiple years where they did not lose a home game.
That's right.
They had multiple years where they did not lose more than 1 home game. I don't think they lost more than 1 home game in the past decade.
Right.
They are on a 6-game losing streak versus Power 4 opponents at home. The only win they've got in the last 2 years, or in the last 8 games, was a win over the Citadel and a 27-16 struggle win over Troy. So Death Valley is not the impenetrable force that it has been in the past. And when you look at this Clemson team, man, they're 3-5. Their 3 wins are against Troy, 3-5 UNC, and 1-8 Boston College. So even in their wins has not been impressive at all. Now, 3 of their 5 losses were only by 1 score. Obviously, we know they lost the LSU game in game 1, 17-10 at home. That was billed to be one of the biggest games of the season. Boy, has that really went south. the 2 teams out of that game. One has fired their coach. One wants their coach fired. Game 2, we know they had the struggle win against Troy, 27-16, trailed 16-0 at half, I believe it was. Then they lost to Georgia Tech on the road, 24-21. That's a good Georgia Tech team. They lost 34-21 versus Syracuse. Syracuse is 3-6, but keep in mind they did lose their quarterback in that game. They were 3-1 when they played, but Syracuse handed them their butts in that game. I watched that game. Clemson had no answers for that offense.
Yeah.
And I hate to see Steve Angeli get hurt like that because they've really went south since then. Game 5, they smoke UNC 38-10, but then again, who hasn't? Beat BC on the road 41-10. They're 1-8. Everybody's blown them out. And then they did lose 35-24 versus SMU at home. Klubnik did not play in that game. And then the last game last week, they lost 46-45 versus Duke, who is 5-3, and they were coming off a bye. So, man, It is. And Dabo is yelling at people on the sideline. It's crazy, man, because I've heard there's some rumblings there that there might be some forced changes.
Yeah.
He might have to make some Mike Norvell type of moves, and he's not happy about it. So there's a big buyout there too. So they're kind of in the same situation as us. Maybe loser has to pay the other one's buyout or something like that. But man, this is not the same Clemson team that we've become used to. Now we've talked about this before. We've seen some cracks in the foundation with 23 and then 24, where they kind of got lucky to get into the playoffs and things like that. I still didn't see this type of fall off happening. So before we talk offense, defense, man, just all big picture, this is one of the craziest developments out of the entire season, is seeing Clemson sitting at 3-5 with all the returning talent that they had.
I mean, it's wild. I mean, at the time that the Florida State played Clemson at Memorial Stadium in 2023, I think Clemson had been like 60-2 or something like that. They had a 40-game home winning streak. It was like all these different things. And then, like you said, they have lost. They are 2-5 at home. 2-5 since beating Virginia in October 2024. 2-5 at
Crazy.
home, right? They're losing games just like ridiculously. Their defense is not in it. Now, we'll talk about all that, but their offense is somewhat trying to get better and score points.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, I mean, ridiculous. And, the thing is, this is not much unlike what we saw at the end of Jimbo era, where that 27 season. Now, obviously, they had lost DeAndre Francois, and they were having to play James Blackman, and the offensive line was terrible. The defense basically just was like whatever, right? But this is eerily similar in this sense. I've heard speculation, and again, this is just the people you see that you that have some following on social media, X or whatever, but that Dabo in some ways is trying to purposely get fired, let go in some ways.
Yeah, it's crazy. I
And
mean, I can't say that I believe that wholeheartedly, but
exactly,
man, I have said for a while that it feels like there's a staleness there,
there's
right? Where
something.
he's arguing with fans and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like maybe he wants to change too.
Well, it's like, and the thing with Dabo in my mind is like he's saying like, how dare you guys forget about what I've done here? Okay,
Yeah, I'll
bro.
go win somewhere else
Yeah,
and
I'll go
stuff like
win
that.
somewhere else. Like, and I'm like, okay, bro. Like, I get it. You won 2 national championships there. You played for 2 other ones. Whatever. Like, yes, you deserve a lot of the credit. But the product on the field
Hmm.
is not matching what they're paying you. Like,
Right.
everybody has to be responsible to the piper. Everybody has to pay the piper. And when you're not owning up to the contract you're given, it is the fans' right to question what is happening here. So you acting like you walk on water and that no one should ever question you. You should be able to go 0-30 or whatever it is, and no one that's not how the way the world works, bro. Especially in
Yeah.
college sports. So you getting mad and bickering at the fans, that's ridiculous. Now, I've also heard that your boy Dabble's trying to line up that LSU job, right?
I wouldn't be surprised.
And let's be real. If LSU wants to come find a go get a coach that's a national championship coach, Dabble's the only coach that is in the hot seat proverbial potential on the market that has won a national title
Yeah.
outside of Jimbo Fisher. And you're probably not touching Jimbo Fisher with a 10-inch pole right now, right? Because of what
Mm-mm.
happened at Texas A&M. So if you want a coach that has actually won and built a successful program, and all he needs is the resources to go recruit the high school and lock down Louisiana, I mean, Dabble's your guy.
Yeah. I just think the hard part for Dabo is like I think he was a surefire shoe in when Saban retired, but he
Yeah,
coached his way out of it. He
that's right.
refuses to adapt to the modern game, which I think Alabama didn't. We know they wanted Mike Norvell, but I'm sure they probably didn't love his over reliance on the portal.
Mhm,
Like Dabo can still recruit, but
mhm,
I think the problem for when I look at that Clemson program, not just the team, but the program is a lot of this is kind of like you mentioned with Jimbo, where once a certain even towards the end of Bobby's career, like once you lost a certain coordinator, you
mhm,
just could never get it back. And since they
mhm.
lost Venables, and Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott, it just hasn't been the
Yep,
same program. And
yep.
you've started to see, the down year, then an up year, then a down year, and it's just lost the consistency. And they haven't been able to consistently win at that high level. Even last year, they lucked into the ACC championship. In
Mhm,
23, the sign was there when you got blown out
mhm,
by Duke.
mhm.
Like that was your sign. And so this
Well,
program it's at a little bit of a crossroads right now. I think with Dabo, I think there are two sides to that, right? Like if you're Clemson, you have to be like, okay, man, this guy has definitely led us to the best that we've ever
mhm,
had. So we got to give him some grace on that end. But I also think if you're Dabo, you're like, man, you kind of help create the standard that you're not meeting
mhm,
now at Clemson.
mhm.
And so if you can't do that, it may be time. So I don't, like you said, he's probably the only coach with a ring on his finger that is actually obtainable by a program like LSU, other than Jimbo Fisher. But I don't think they're going to go with either one. I just don't think they want that right now because man, the thing is with Clemson is like you can blame it on some coordinators and stuff like that, but they still have so much talent on that roster to be losing some of these crazy games that they're losing to some of these teams over the past couple of years. I mean, I was watching our guy Bobby there over at Clemson Football Live, Shout out to him. And he was saying that, like, man, Clemson, if you really go back and look into their schedule, every good team they play, they lose against. They
Oh,
just
yeah.
kind of beat a lot of bad teams over the last since about 23. And so, yeah, I think there is some staleness on that program. And Dabo says, like, I sucked this year, I think he said, and I'll get it fixed. But how often do we hear that in college
Right.
football? I'll get it fixed. And it's like,
And
man, you haven't really been where you were supposed to be since about 2018, 2019.
correct.
Can you get that back without the same, maybe if Venables gets fired and you bring him back to Clemson, maybe.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I think that ship might be getting ready to sail.
Yeah, I think so. What I was going to say real quick is what's so interesting. He's been there 17 years. 13 of the 17 years, he's had 10 plus win seasons. In 4 of the 17 years, he's played for a national championship. In 2 of those years, he's won the national championship. His first season he went 9-5. His second season he went 6-7, and then started this ungodly streak of 10 plus win seasons. Right? Okay, all those things are true. All that's possible. The issue with Dabo is, man, you have so much talent on that team that you've recruited, that you've developed.
Yeah.
Why isn't it playing up to its potential? Well, it's because the message is they don't believe in the message anymore. They don't believe in the thing. Like, you can't say that Duke is better than you. Duke is not, from a talent standpoint, better than you. And people are saying, well, it's because he didn't rely on the transfer portal. No, that's not it. That's not it. He still has
You still got more talent.
He still has more
homegrown talent that you developed.
Homegrown talent, which is better than transfer portal talent.
Yeah.
Right? Look at Georgia. Look at Alabama. That is homegrown talent there. The reason he's not winning is because the Dabo Swinney message is lost on those players. They're not buying into that. They're not playing their hearts out for that coach anymore. That's a problem. That is a huge problem. You've been there 17 years, bro. It might be time for a change, right?
Yeah.
And if I was a Clemson fan, like, I would have listened. Clemson fans, go watch The Lost Decade. Bobby should have probably left 5 years before he actually did leave. It's just because the message was gone. Penn State, look at Joe Paterno before all that crap came out. He should have left long before that.
Yeah.
The message was just gone. He had one 10-win season and beat Florida State in an Orange Bowl. That was really him and Bobby old geezering it, and God rest Bobby's soul. Like, he, again, when they stayed too long, it just, look at Nick Saban. Nick Saban figured it out. He was like, I can't pay players secretly and have the advantage anymore. I'm out. Because if not, I'm just going to end up like all these other guys, holding on to something that once was.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing that I wonder, like, with this game, and I'll get into this kind of in my prediction here, is, like, I think this game's really going to kind of come down to who wants it more, right? Because you have 2 teams that are underperforming relative to their talent. Who's going to want it more? And I feel like with Florida State kind of knowing their coach is coaching for his job, with Florida State coming off a bad season, they're still like, okay, we're still got something to play for. Those Clemson players, they might not even make a bowl. How interested in the rest of the season are they? And I think, to your point, there's a lot of similarities between Mike Norvell and Dabo Swinney in the fact that the message is a little stale. You may not be able to get back what you had. And I think the difference is like, a lot of it has been some of your coordinators, but the difference between Dabo and Mike is at least Dabo has been able to recruit at a high level to stock their roster with talent, but still both coaches are underperforming relative to their talent. So it just kind of comes back to, like, if you fire coordinators, at least you have Dabo who has been able to recruit. Now let's see how he can recruit when they're not having success.
Right.
The problem is when you have a $10 million CEO head coach who also doesn't recruit at a high level like that in Mike Norvell, changing the coordinators feels like you're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, right? The ship is still going down. You're just doing some things to make it more stomachable why it's going down. And so that's the hard part, man. But let's talk about this game and can Florida State go up here and win? Because this is a very winnable game for Florida State right now. I mean, we maybe didn't think this was going to be one of the ones that you would win at the beginning of the year, but now it looks very doable. So let's start with the Clemson offense here. We already talked a little bit about how they got to 3-5 and the problems that we're seeing in that program. And so let me set the stage here, because I always like to do this before we get into the preview, to just kind of give you an idea of the opponents that team has faced to get here, right? Because there are some things that are interesting when you start overturning all the stones of what Clemson's good at and maybe why they're good at that, right? And that'll make more sense in just a second. So right now, Clemson, as we get ready to talk about the offense, they have faced one top 25 scoring defense so far this season and 3 in the top 50. So not a really tough slate of scoring defenses. Florida State is currently sitting at 33rd. So you will be one of the better defenses that they have faced. And I know that's hard to believe, but it is. 0 top 30 passing offense or passing defenses they face. So they have not faced a lot of good passing defenses. Now that's going to make sense in a second because their passing offense is pretty darn good. But it's because of a lot of who they have not faced. They faced 2 in the top 50, and one of those was Troy. Right now, Florida State is 43rd in yards per game allowed in the pass. So you will be one of the better passing defenses that they have faced. Actually, so far this season, when we talk about them not facing a good pass defense, they have faced 111th, 124th, 127th, and 135th ranked passing defenses. There's only 136 teams, so they have not faced a tough slate. So when you see that, okay, well, they haven't been able to run the ball good, but they've been able to throw it. Well, that has a lot of reason to do with who they played. They have faced 2 top 25 rushing defenses, but only 2 in the top 50. So 2 good ones, not a whole lot there. Other than that, FSU is at 29, so you will be one of the better rush defenses that they have faced this season. And by the way, both of those top 25 rushing defenses held Clemson under 100 yards. So I like your chances there. We know they did a good job of taking away the run against Miami. They just got burned on the back end. You can't have that happen again because this is a good passing offense. A couple of things to keep in mind as we head into this game. Cade Klubnik was injured 2 weeks ago. I think it was against Duke. He hurt his ankle. SMU. Boston College. That's the game I'm looking for. He was hurt against Boston College. There's been 2 games and a bye, so it's been 3 weeks. But against Duke, his ankle was very heavily taped. It's kind of limited his mobility a little bit, and he actually is a pretty mobile guy. So that could be something to watch in this game. Bryant Wesco, one of their best receivers, did not play versus Duke due to injury. We don't know if he's going to be back yet or not. And they have been shuffling a few different offensive linemen in the last couple games. So they're dealing with some injury stuff too, just like we are. Now, when you talk about this Clemson offense, it is 70th in the country, 28.4 points per game, about the same number against Power 4 opponents. But they have scored 30-plus in 3 of the past 4 games and 40-plus in 2 of those games. So their offense is starting to find their footing a little bit. But with that being said, those games were against the 49th ranked scoring defense at UNC, the 93rd by Duke, and the 123rd by BC. So they're kind of beating up on some bad teams. And for what Florida State has or hasn't been, you haven't been as bad as 2 of those 3. So hopefully you can keep them around that 30-point or less range. Passing offense, as I mentioned, is very good. 297 yards per game, 13th in the country. They're 12th in pass attempts, 34th in completion percentage, 35th in passing touchdowns. So it is all in all a top 35 passing offense. It's pretty good. They started out the first 3 games, they were under 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks. Over the last 4 out of 5 games, they've thrown for over 300 yards in every game with 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So, again, their offense is kind of starting to find its footing. The rushing offense, 124 yards a game, 109th in the country. It's not been great on the ground for them, right? They had Moffa to replace. They had the other kid, the I forget his name. All the little white dudes that they have that are good. They lost him to Shipley. That's what I'm trying to think of. They've had to replace him, and they've struggled to do that, right? 119th in attempts per game, 89th in yards per carry at 3.99, 86 in rushing touchdowns. They've been held under 35 yards rushing twice this season, under 100 yards 3 times this season, but they did rush for over 150 in 3 games and 226 against Boston College, but their defense is atrocious. 86 in third down conversions, converting about 84% of their red zone trips, 22 of 26, 17 touchdowns to 5 field goals. So that is something to watch. They are 73rd in red zone scoring, but they've scored a significant number more touchdowns. Explosive plays, 34 on the season, 86 in the country. 30 of those have come through the pass. So again, I don't love the way we match up with Clemson because they are a pass-heavy team, and we know that is our weakness. But when you get back to talking about that rushing defense some of the passing defenses that they faced, it's not been the greatest, right? And so I think you have an opportunity there to maybe hold them at least a little bit in check through the air. Now, when we talk about Cade Klubnik here, 67.2% completion percentage on the season, 1,915 yards, 13 touchdowns, 5 picks. Michael, he had 36 passing touchdowns in 14 games last year and 13 through 7 games this year. So it's just not been the same, man.
Yeah.
35% of their throws are over 10 yards, 57.7 come under 10 yards. So you expect to see a lot of short passing again.
Yep.
That's kind of been the gripe with Garrett Riley's offenses. They don't really push the ball down the field successfully. But Klubnik has been solid in all ranges and is actually not terrible under pressure either. So it's kind of one of those, maybe you can get to him with a bum ankle, but he's a mobile guy. So you got to be careful with that. He's good under pressure. They have allowed 92 pressures to only 8 sacks this season. His pressure to sack percentage is only 8.7%. So less than 10% of the time you get a pressure, you actually get a sack. So again, that's what I'm talking about. He's escapability. He's really good. And they gave up 18 pressures versus LSU, 25 versus Syracuse. So you will get some opportunities. You just have to make sure you get him on the ground. Last couple things on the offense here. Wide receivers, solid receiving core, 3 over 350 yards. Wesco leads with 537 and 6 touchdowns. He may or may not be available on Saturday. TJ Moore, number 2, with 499 yards, 4 touchdowns. Antonio Williams, who was supposed to be their best guy coming into the season, he's been banged up. He missed a couple games there, but he still got 33 receptions, 367 yards, and a touchdown on the receiving core. So they got some good receivers. They got a good passing offense. I mean, it is what it is. It's not been clicking this year. I think that's the biggest problem with them. And then you have a struggling ground game here. Adam Randall's the leading back there. 101 attempts, 522 yards, 5.17 yards per attempt, 6 touchdowns. Klubnik is actually the second leading rusher on the team. So it's kind of Randall or nobody. And then your pass block efficiency here comes in at 104th. So that's been a big problem with Clemson's offense this year. The offensive line has just struggled. They're 104th in pass block, Woo, that's a tough one. Pass block efficiency, kicking my butt, just like an unranked team against Mike Norvell. Golly. And then rush yards per game, 89. So the offensive line has kind of been part of the problem there. But again, I'll throw it back to you on this, man. It's a pretty solid passing attack that has feasted on some bad passing defenses, but I feel like you should be able to bottle the run up in this game. You just can't have a Miami situation where you get burnt behind you when you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, this offense it's so tricky because it's getting, the passing offense at least is getting better and better as we see each week. FSU pass defense is always the thing that's just drives me crazy, even against Wake Forest. They were still playing 10, almost 10 yards off. Now they did a little bit less of that. They simplified things, so maybe that'll help with that. But man, I just, it's hard to trust that defense when you've seen just get gashed for big plays. And some of those big plays that got taken back from Florida State or from Wake Forest were big plays in the passing game again. So you look at Clemson and you say, okay, well, I don't know. But the passing, they're 12th. Obviously the run defense should give you a little bit better hope that if you make them one-dimensional and force them to have to pass, now you're just telling the DBs, hey, we're gonna crowd the line of scrimmage. We're gonna force them to have to throw the ball. We're going to give you some safety help, but man, you've got to defend. You're just going to have to defend.
You're on an island.
You're on an island a little bit here. And so we need you to step up. We need you, this would be a great opportunity for Tony White to add some bump and run coverage in where you're going to be aggressive with the wide receiver at the line of scrimmage, try to get them off their routes there, try to force the throw window to be difficult for Cade Klubnik to throw into. Maybe this gives you an opportunity to be a little bit more aggressive. You might give up some big plays, but also you might get some picks as well, too. So I think that's kind of, in my mind, how you're going to have to attack this. Listen, they're 73rd in the country in red zone. So if you can, even if they get to the red zone, they're not going to score very often in that. They have, I think, 17 touchdowns, 5 field goals there. In that sense, if that number I have is correct there.
Yeah.
And they're only averaging about 22 first downs a game. So what you want to try to do is make sure they don't have big success on first down, right? If you can get them into that third and medium to third and long, there's a likelihood chance they're not going to convert that third and long. They're not very good. I think I have there that on third down, they're 38%. They're 85th in the country in third down conversions. So if you can get them in that third and medium to third and long, you have a really good chance of getting off the field, which is going to be very important if you're an FSU defense, because this offense is coming on. It is getting better from a passing standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing is, like, you could see Clemson breaking out at any point,
Yeah,
right? Because they still do have a lot of talent
they still
on
do.
that side of the ball too, and they do on defense. As we flip over and talk about that, so talking about this Clemson defense, really, what was crazy, man, is I remember watching Clemson early, like I think it was
Mhm.
against Syracuse, and I was like, we had heard it was offense, offense, offense. LSU was offense; they just could not score. And then I watched that Syracuse game, and I was like, the defense doesn't look much better. Like it's
Mhm.
this is a equal opportunity struggle fest
Mhm.
going on in
Mhm.
Clemson. Um, and so you talk about them, and we'll start with the opponents that they've faced. So you kind of get an idea of the offenses that they have faced this season. They have faced 2 top 25 scoring offenses and only 2 in the top 50. So they haven't faced Murderers Row quite yet. Now,
Mm-mm.
Florida State is 7th. If you adjust out for those 2 games where we ran it up on 2 cupcakes, they're 30th. So you still have been one of the better offenses that they're going to face this season. They have faced 4 top 35 passing offenses and 6 in the top 50. So they have faced that secondary has been tested. Florida State is currently 28th and 31st against Power 4 opponents only. So the passing offense has actually been pretty decent. Again, we just saw Tommy throw for 270 and a touchdown and get the win. They have only faced one. This is the one that you need to watch out for here. They have only faced one top 25 rushing offense. They have only
Oof.
faced one rushing offense in the top 90 so far this season. When you look
Okay.
at the bad ones, they have faced the 93rd ranked rushing offense, 110th, 113th, 117th, 119th, 124th, and the 130th ranked rushing
Mm.
offenses. They have faced a ton of bad teams on the ground, right? Florida State is 8th or 22nd against Power 4 opponents. So again, we know this is a very run heavy, run happy Florida State team who has been, for the most part, very good at running the ball. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not been perfect all season, but they can run the ball. And this Clemson defense has not faced anything right now. I think Georgia Tech was the one in the top 25 that they faced. This is going to be a tough challenge for them. I
Mm.
mean, we are not the 100 plus ranked rushing offense. So you're going to give them fits on the ground. I believe, I hope so. But talking about this defense here, they are allowing 24 points per game, 64th in the country, 25.1 against Power 4 opponents. Passing defense, 245 yards a game allowed, 103rd in the country. Again, remember they faced 6 top 50 passing offenses, so they have been tested. They're still 46 in pass touchdowns allowed, 64th in completion percentage allowed, and 23rd in long pass plays allowed. So they're kind of better than the number shows, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about the rush defense, this is why we look at the numbers and the opponents that you faced. 106 yards per game on the ground, top 20 rushing defense, 32nd in yards per carry allowed, 29th in rushing touchdowns per a game per allowed. So you're like, man, by all means, this is a top 30, top 20 rushing offense. Keep in mind what I just told you. They
Right.
played a bunch of garbage rushing offense teams. So it's easy to pad your stats in that narrative, right? And so I think what you're going to face with Florida State is going to be a much bigger challenge that hopefully can rush for much more than 106 yards. Turnovers forced, they have forced 8 turnovers this season, 97th in the country, 3 fumbles, 5 interceptions. They have 19 sacks, 44th in the country, 2 or less in 5 games. 13 of those sacks came in 3 games. Third down defense is allowing 32.7% conversions, 23rd. Red zone defense is allowing 86.4 conversions, 94th in the country, 14 touchdowns allowed to 5 field goals. So they're giving up touchdowns in the red
Yeah.
zone too. And
Yep.
Florida State has been pretty darn good in the red zone. I will
Yep.
give them that. And in explosive plays, they've only allowed 23 total over 20 yards. That's 12th in the country, and 18 of those came through the pass. So you almost want to say like the rushing defense looks good, but again, you got to keep in mind on who it's been against. So man,
Right.
again, when I look at this defense, it's not a bad defense. But it's certainly not playing up to the level of talent that they have.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, when I look at this defense, what I'm looking at is how do they play against your strength, right?
Right.
How well are they playing against your strength? And for Florida State, the strength of this team is running the ball. Now,
Yep.
I can't remember the last time Florida State got over 200 yards rushing. I want to say it was one of the where was
I'll
the
look it
last
up while we're
I think,
yeah.
yeah, I think it was like Kent State or yeah, I think it's Kent State the last time they got over 200 yards rushing, because against Virginia, against Pitt, against Stanford, against Wake Forest, you did not go over 200 yards rushing. I believe I could be.
So yeah, you had 230 Alabama, 361, 498, 256
Which
against
was
Virginia. Virginia
Virginia
was the last
256.
game, and
Okay,
you
so
have broke 150 once since then,
okay,
and that was
so
against Pitt.
okay, so Clemson is giving up 106 yards on defense in the run game. They're ranked 20th in the country. So their one anchor thing they can hold on to is that they're pretty decent against the run. That is your bread and butter. So if you can't run the ball, then guess what happens? Tommy has to throw the ball. And we know what that looks like, right? We know what happens when you can't run the ball. Go back to the Miami game when it was 28-3 because you couldn't run the ball and you had to chuck it around the field. Now, granted, Mario Cristobal does what Mario Cristobal does and allowed you to get back into that game, but you got back in that game by chucking the ball around because you could not run the ball. You just couldn't. Now, you were able to, I think, to get close to 100 yards or a little bit over 100 yards in that game, I believe. But again, that's the thing I look at for Clemson is Clemson can stop you. Clemson can slow you down doing what you do best. Now, you might have to throw the ball and you might get a lot of air or passing yards through the air because they're not very good in the passing. They're 101 in the country in passing defense, but they are 20th in the country in slowing your run game down. So it's going to be predicated on Gus Malzahn to figure out how they can scheme up runs, not trick runs, but runs to get you some significant yardage to slow that run, that headhunting run game down so that then you can get some good passing offenses and do that. I'd be curious to know. I didn't look up the Duke stat against Duke of what they did against Duke, of what they were able to hold Duke against in the run game. Because Duke's run
it was
game
good. They held them to 78 yards, but Duke also has the 93rd ranked rushing defense or offense.
Offense. So I'll be interested to see what they do against a rushing offense that's one of the top in the country. But also, this is your strength is playing into their strength right now, and whose strength win. Again, Clemson has the better talented defense, then you have the better talented offense. So I would give just a slight edge in that department to the Clemson Tigers.
Yeah. Again, I think I just go back to, I wonder if that's no pun intended, a paper tiger stat.
That's true.
When I name off 7 of the 8 opponents that you've played are ranked in 90th or below in rushing offense. They didn't play Clemson every week. So depending on who else they played, Georgia Tech is probably the closest thing to Florida State's offense right now with a mobile quarterback. You could maybe say SMU too, because they have Kevin Jennings there. They're a mobile quarterback and a team that likes to run the ball. Georgia Tech got him for 147 and SMU got him for 139. So, I agree that I think you need to be pushing probably well over 150 if you want to win this game.
Yes, yeah.
But I just look at it again. I come back to how many terrible rushing offenses they played compared to Florida State, who's going to be right now the best rushing offense that they have played. And so to me, I just wonder, you're going to put that stat to the test. Like you said, I mean, it looks good on paper, but is it a paper tiger stat? And so we'll see how that goes. But let's wrap this. Let's land this show. Let's land the ship and let's come at it with some final thoughts and predictions for this Clemson game. A couple things to keep in mind here. They are 113th in turnover margin at -5. That's a big reason for a lot of their struggles, but they are only 22nd in penalties per game. So it's not a very heavily penalized team. But Michael, at the end of the day, gosh, man, these killing me today. At the end of the day, Clemson is the more talented team. They're playing at home, but they have been playing bad or worse than FSU. Now, they haven't lost to Stanford. They haven't really got blown out in any games. I mean, they lost by a couple scores, 10 or 12 or something like that here or there, but they haven't really been blown out and they haven't really lost to a bad team like Stanford like we have. And the thing with FSU is FSU has shown it can be a good team that can beat a team like Clemson that's struggling. They beat Bama. They ran neck and neck with a handful of currently ranked CFP teams. They beat the brakes off of Wake Forest. I know it's Wake Forest, but still.
Yeah.
They've also shown they can lose to a team like Stanford. So my question is, which team shows up? Right? Which Florida State team shows up in this game? Is it the 4 wins or the 4 losses? Because I think Florida State, if they play like they did against Wake Forest last week, they will beat Clemson. And they might beat Clemson by a couple scores, I think. I really do think this game, in a nutshell, comes down to who wants it more.
Yep.
And I come back to Florida State is rallying behind their coach right now. It seems like they are trying to have this new November. Clemson looks like they're ready to get to December and be done with the season. And so I think Florida State does want it more. And I think that will play into their strength. Now, the thing that I worry about is the matchups like you talked about. They have a really good passing offense and not so good passing defense for us. Now, they've faced a couple of weak passing defenses. They have a good rushing defense, but it's been against a lot of bad rushing offenses. So the matchups, I think, may be a little bit prettier on paper than they really are on the field on Saturday. And so, man, I just think this is a game that comes down to who wants it more, right? Who wants this game more? And right now, if Florida State shows up with the energy and the focus that they did last week, I think they'll win this game. And so here's my quick 3 keys, and then we'll make a prediction. Key number 1 is play with the energy and intensity we saw versus Wake. If you play like you did on the road against Stanford, you're going to lose, and you might lose badly because this Clemson team still has a lot of talent, right? They still beat UNC 38-10 or whatever it was. They still beat Boston College like 41-10. They can still beat you if you don't show up ready to play. We've also seen them lose to a lot of teams they should not lose to. So I think if you show up with that focus and that energy and punch them in the mouth in their building, I think you got a good chance in this game. My key number 2, control the ground game. We know they have not run the ball well. We know you're good at stopping the run. Make them one-dimensional. Make Cade Klubnik beat you. I don't love that recipe, right? Maybe you try and take away the pass and make them run to beat you because Klubnik can do it, right? He is still a pretty good quarterback. He's not Heisman contender like we thought maybe at the beginning of the season. But I think you need to control the ground game. I think you need to run the ball on them and let's see what that top 20 run defense is made of, right? Against a good running team. And then number 3, I said I wasn't going to say this no more because they haven't done it, but they finally did it one week. So I'm going to bring it back out of the war chest here. Play a clean game, man. Look at what happened when you don't turn the ball over 4 times and have 28,000 penalties, right? Like, just play a clean game and good things happen. So, man, bring the energy and intensity, control the ground game, play a clean game, and I think you're in good shape in this. So give me your keys, your final thoughts, and then we'll jump into a prediction.
Yeah, listen, 3 quick keys. Number 1, you got to make Cade mobile. If he's injured, make him run, which means you got to get him off his launch point, which means you got to blitz. Yes, you might give up some big plays in the passing game on a blitz, but you need to take that chance because I know they haven't played great passing defenses, but that passing offense is coming on right now, okay?
Yeah.
You need to make him mobile. Make him run, test to see how mobile he is. Get him in his launch point, make him uncomfortable, right? Make him errant in his throws, okay? They have 6 interceptions on the season. They've thrown 6 interceptions. They've fumbled the ball 7 times. Their turnover margin is not very good right now. So get them into uncomfortable situations. Number 2, again, I agree with you, make them one-dimensional. You can't let that run game develop right now. They are the 109th run rushing offense in the country. Let's make them the 109th rushing offense in the country, okay? Don't let them have a heyday in running. Make them one-dimensional. They have to beat you by the pass. And then number 3, finally, punch first and punch often. You are going into a hostile environment. I don't care how bad they are. It's not going to be a complete sellout. It's not going to be all like that, but it's still Clemson.
It's still a night game.
It's still a night game. It's still Death Valley. You still have struggled there. You have lost 4 out of the last 5 in this series. You've lost however many out of the last whatever. You've only won once there in the last 10, 15 years, whatever it's been. Like, this is still going to be a very tough environment for you to go in and win. So you got to punch first and you got to punch often. Every opportunity you get.
Yeah, I think the crowd might be decent because I was just looking at their schedule. They go Florida State at home at night, at Louisville, home versus Furman. At South Carolina. So this is their last big home game. So they probably will turn out for this one. And I think some of the struggles put a little more pressure on Mike Norvell, right? Like, they've lost 6 home games in a row versus Power 4 opponents. You can't be the one that lets them break the streak, right? And we're good at doing that. But
yes, we are.
Hopefully you can go up there and get this win. And so when we get down to our predictions here, I tried to get a little bit scientific on this one, right? I tried to bring some math and some formula into this because Lord knows you can't predict this Florida State team from week to week. So I went and I looked at the similar offenses. They faced Georgia Tech and SMU, who are ranked pretty close to you against Power 4 opponents. They've also faced SMU and Georgia Tech are the 2 closest teams to you, right? And so I kind of looked at what they allowed in that game, what Florida State scores on average, and what they do with, just kind of what I would expect them to give up and go. And so Clemson on average, you're looking at the Clemson defense between Georgia Tech, SMU, and what Florida State scores in every game, gives up an average that's around 30 points. And they have allowed over 30 plus 3 times. So I think Florida State has the opportunity to score 30 points in this game. When you look at the Clemson offense, the similar defenses that they faced was SMU. They gave up 24, Georgia Tech 21. Florida State is giving up an average of 25 points a game. That comes down to around 23 points. Now they have been held under 35 times. So I don't think any of these numbers that I'm coming up with are unrealistic, right? You're what, 5 points off their average for defense, and you're 5 points roughly off their average for offense. And we know they played a lot of bad teams. And so I think when I boil it all down, I do think that Florida State wants this game a little bit more than Clemson does. I think Clemson's just ready to be done with this. Because again, this is a perennial playoff team. They don't know what 3-5 feels like. Mm-hmm. They're not ready for this. If Florida State shows up and plays the way they did against Wake, which is what I'm expecting, I think they win this game. If they show up and play like they did the 4 weeks before, they will get probably ran out of the stadium, right? But I have Florida State. Daggone it, Michael. I'm back on the Kool-Aid. I'm going to pick Florida State.
What is wrong with you?
I'm back on the Kool-Aid. And this is more of a prediction of Florida State winning because they just looked different last week. And because Clemson looks like such an unmitigated disaster right now, even more so than Florida State, I'm taking the Noles to get their third win in Death Valley in the last 10 years, 30-27. Give me Florida State to beat Clemson.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, I didn't do as a scientific thing.
I'm grasping at straws here.
I didn't do the scientific thing that you did. Mike Norvell in November, I don't know what the record is. It's not very good. Let's just be real. It's not very good. Obviously, he got this win against Wake Forest. I think it's only like his third or fourth November win in his career third or fourth November win at Florida State. The thing I look about is all of those statistics that you just brought up. They're so true. They're so correct. This is only going to be the second top 50 rushing offense that this Clemson defense faced. Georgia Tech was one of them. They gave up 147 yards to Georgia Tech. Florida State, is a better, according to the stats, is a better rushing offense than Georgia Tech is right now. So this will be the second. So this might be a mute point, but like strength versus strength, maybe they're a paper strength, as you said, but also I have seen Florida State play this season. I don't know which Florida State's going to show up. And again, Mike has been here. This is the 6th season. He has played Clemson every year but one. And he has lost every one except for a miraculous sack by Kalen DeLoach and just a glorious touchdown in overtime to Keon Coleman. He has not fared well in this matchup. And so I can't, in good conscience, vote or predict that Florida State will win this game with Mike Norvell at the helm. So I have Clemson breaking the losing streak and winning this game 28-17 at Death Valley at night, where Mike Norvell has not shown he could do that. I can't see it at this moment. Now, I would love for him to prove me wrong, but my prediction, I'm not rooting against it. I just say my prediction is it's an 11-point loss to Clemson on the road.
That's fair. He is 12-7 in November.
12-7. Man, these stats are wrong. Okay.
And two of those losses were in 2020. So, like, if you break off the COVID season, he's 12-5 in November. Mm-hmm. So, Mike Norvell he loves Thanksgiving, man. He gets fat off some turkey late in the season. So, we'll have to see, man. I mean, it could go either way, right? Yeah. Like I said, I feel like this is one Clemson Florida State could go up there and win. I also feel like if Florida State plays like they did the last couple of weeks, we're going to be in trouble. So, I could see it going both ways. But, man, I hope they win. Again, I'm always going to cheer for them to win, right? I mean, I can't say that I want him to be the coach next year, but I still want Florida State to win. So, man, we're going to leave it at that. That's going to be it for the show. We appreciate you guys watching. I know this one ran a little bit long. I just did the rough math calculations on his November record. I just went through the scale. I was trying to count as fast as I could. I was like, please keep talking because I'm trying to count real fast. And I got my shoes off right now trying to get enough numbers here. So I'm trying to get it together. I was trying as fast as I could. I'm no mathematician, but so yeah, that's going to be it for this one, guys. We will have a post game show for you after the Clemson one. I am free this Saturday. I will be at home, so excited to be able to watch this one and do another live post game show. I know it's been a little bit, so I do apologize about that. But again, like and subscribe on YouTube if you enjoy this content. Rate and review on the podcast to help us reach other Nole fans. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor. We really appreciate you guys helping spread the word. Man, we just love doing this because of the relationship we have with you guys. Yeah. And so that's going to be it. Make sure you check out Alumni Hall. Save 10% with Code Spear. And we'll see you guys on the other side. As always, go Noles.
Go Noles.